Wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone. Today is Sunday, June the 19th. This is Esoteric Radio, the ER Room for Your Soul, and we're once again broadcasting live the truth. And today we have a lot for you. Today's show is scheduled for exactly 1 hour, and I've been currently experiencing internet problems, and so that may occur today, and so we just ask everyone to bear with it. And in fact, I'm going to have always a clear copy available. Today, the title of the show was definitely about the Venusian hive mind and what I call the vines, because I didn't really want to implicate the trees as the same as vines, like IVs or ivy and kudzus and vines that spread and choke out everything. But the fact is that there's just so much happening. It becomes very difficult to transmit that in English. And so I just ask everyone always to bear with me as I attempt to do that. So basically, if you could imagine yourself as another being, and you came to Earth, and you landed in the middle of the mall during Saturday with all of the entertainment and things going on, what would you really think, especially if you came from a planet that was fully awake? You're just making a trip. You decided that you would go to this unmarked territory. People need to really start to realize how much courage it takes to even land on unmarked territory. And if that territory is marked, to land even though you understand the symbol that it's marked with. Well, let's explain this, because many have this idea that they've come from space and another planet, and they're here to help Earth in its troubles and situation. And the only thing they need to do is simply be briefed about the complete situation so that they can go ahead and begin to carry on their mission, because it doesn't take maybe a year or two at this point for most people to finish their mission completely. So, if you were this being and you landed in the middle of the mall, the first thing you would notice is the extreme amount of programming going on. Everywhere you turn, or the beings turn on this planet, they are bombarded with straight lines, which is called an intrusion, languages, symbols, marks. And this begins to feed itself into a network that is created around the person. Now, here's the interesting part. If you look at the movie Blueberry, and then you look at the Indian guy, he has himself inside of what we're calling a Merkaba. But in this case, the Merkaba has no points. It's just the actual center core of it. And if you take that center core and you lay it down 2D, it's a hexagram. So what they're basically showing, as people have seen with their third eye awake, is that there is a Merkaba field that does surround every individual, a bubble, for better lack of words. However, that bubble is not necessarily there just for your own use and protection and all this grand stuff that people have invented with their ego. It's there so that they can constantly program into that communication hexagram, because that's all the hexagram is used for through science, through nature, through everything, is about communication. Communication with what? We understand that that same hexagram is also on Saturn. That hexagram is also on different fields, different crystals. And so we understand that there's a huge network that these hexagrams are accessed by. So people need to understand that these portals, from 5-pointed stars, 7-pointed stars, 8-pointed stars, all this geometry that's drawn in different places becomes an eye for whatever ultimately controls that symbol or whatever to look there. So it's basically like their camera. Now, how much influence they can have over the environment is how much influence they have over the grid that is around you. Some people understand our original concept, which was to break the matrix or to break the grid. so that you can have a breakthrough, so you could see what was on the outside. To me now, I'm considering strongly if that for many people is going to be an advantage or a disadvantage to them, because as many have known now, we've released information as we speak into the ether, the announcement of the opening and almost the opening of the school and what it's going to consist of. But people also notice that there will be requirements to determine whether a person can enter the school. And this is because if you look at the reality right now, you see that certain people have gotten a hold of things and the knowledge of things that they are not fully equipped to deal with. Meaning that we were to never allow this level of power and knowledge to fall into the hands of the wicked, for better lack of words. I want people to really think of all of these superhero comics and things that they've ever read, and even certain cases when the religions have a good ending, all of what they read, and what it generally says is one thing: never let the power fall into the hands of the wrong one. I would tell you personally, humans, you have allowed the power to fall into the hands of the wrong one. Now, the interesting part about this is how it's going to actually unfold is it's common sense. Did anyone ever think that the gods and all these other related beings that they keep talking about had their best interest in mind if they did not first bestow upon them power? Because this is the same hostage situation that you'll see going on in someone's house, where if one person has a lot of money but the other person doesn't, the person keeps that person around like they're their slave or something like that, because they know they have a certain level of power over them. But if someone just gives you the power, like if you moved in the house and they gave you a ton of money and said, look, whether you want to stay with me, whether you want to help listen to what I'm saying or not, here's your own resources. You could do whatever you want to do. That means they gave you power. Now, if something doesn't give you power, that means it has every single intention to master over you. And that's what's been happening to the human race. The human race has been mastered over continuously because the gods, as they're calling them, have come to this planet to breed a slave race. The gods are not the only beings on this planet. The gods are the Gogs, or they're called Og. You can even wiki it. It's Og, the king of Bashan. You'll see his bedpost was drugged by the Hebrews as a token of them to their victory over him, which obviously didn't happen, of how big his bed was to show that giants lived in those times, and man had overthrew giants before because they were tyrants to man. Large lizards, or Tyrannosaurus, as they like to call themselves at times. That's how they've chose to awake their Kundalini. Instead of being something that is benevolent and going to assist humanity, they've awakened something that is going to enslave humanity. And now the documents have reached the hands of men with the same ideas. And I watch these men every single day, waiting for this knowledge even to bestow upon them, or some of the men that the knowledge is already bestowed upon, which is the knowledge to how to master over beings and people and women and all this kind of stuff in a crazy way. Strip clubs, Maybachs, Benzes, all the rest of the stuff that they keep saying that they represent because they use their symbols. Now, I'll tell you this, common sense. If someone can use a symbol in conjunction with something that you think is opposing to that symbol, you're mistaken. If you put one of the symbols on of one of these really high beings because it happened to fall in your hands, and you take that symbol and you try to do something that's contrary to that high being, it will smote you right then. It has no problem doing that. It will stop your heart, etc. So the symbols are in place. So you can watch crosses on pornography. You can watch crosses on every single thing that just is everything. It's about everything. It's just a crossway, a path, a choice for you to make. So what really happens here is that there has been an extreme level of suppression, lack of knowledge, so that a very base level of knowledge can be perceived as high knowledge. And let me explain this. If these beings are in possession of just certain levels of knowledge, technology, whatever you want to call it, power, magic. And you aren't. And you're not even being trained or told about it. The longer you go without knowing about it, the more powerful it actually makes it. Because then if you know, oh, well, someone can put a Mass Effect field around you and then they can alter your dream very easily using light programming that's learned by looking into your third eye when it's turned on. Simple. If that starts to become simple, people start to become aware and they protect themselves from that kind of thing and they consider if that thing may be going on. But if you tell them nothing about it, like there's no holograms and you call them ghosts or holograms, or what is really the difference if we can cause the effect? The fact is that one walks around just basically being used. That's what I've been watching with humanity. I'm watching how every single step you take in every corner one may go around, there seems to be some level of deception there. And then the ones we've trusted to handle things like these people that are in these higher places, like even in the esoteric industry, you have all these individuals who have millions, they like 2 million people, but nothing's still really happening. Why? People need to ask themselves that question and come back into themselves and realize that they're responsible for figuring that out. And failing not to figure that out will be detrimental. It's guaranteed. It's in mathematics. If you don't have enough energy to thrust out of a vortex, you would get stuck into the vortex. The vortex thus recycles you and then rains you back down to earth, and you become sustenance for your next trip, basically, again. And this can happen over and over and over again. As I was revealing in the post, you see the recycle sign of the Star of David in between, because they're letting you know they understand the knowledge of how to recycle a spirit back into matter, and then matter back into spirit. This is actually what you start finding out when you're looking for the equation to the atom bombs. When you're looking in the physics and you're looking at the galaxy as the actual module for genes. And the modules for things, because they're macro, they're the bigger version of things. So you have it there at your disposal, man and woman. All the knowledge that I'm explaining now, but I'm telling you, because we have not accessed that knowledge in what appears to be a great deal of time. I would say great grandfather and grandmother knew. Somehow great grandmother and grandfather started, it was suppressing on them, and it was mainly through bloodshed. They came with the sword, which is a symbol of Mars, the worship of the sword, which is a cross turned up If they don't put points on their cross, because they're not focused. The other point is with Mars, it's a Romulan energy, and it's called the wolf planet. So these were the real wolves in sheep's clothing, came and set up their priests. They said they would send priests from the north and warriors from the south, because they knew how everything was already set up when they got here, because someone betrayed us and gave them the knowledge. Now, people need to understand that there's levels that you have to break through, and I can explain to you very clearly how these levels are. I would like to take everyone that is ready into the actual experience themselves so they can see that everyone sees the same thing. When people with their eyes open, you all see the same thing. In the illusion, everyone sees something different. Look how the illusion is right now. I'm explaining things to people that are 100% true, and you got other people that are sitting back saying, that's not true, that's not how it is. That's because you're in an illusion. It doesn't ever appear like how it really is. So then you get people that break the illusion and come back and try to explain to other people what they saw on the other side. And of course everyone's going to be like, that's not how it really is, because they're still an illusion. Case closed. Unless someone's broke out of this, don't be expecting them to do cartwheels about your information. So as we keep moving into this, what I first found is the first barrier when breaking through these onions, as it looks like. You're in the core for some reason. And then you break through these layers. The first layer appears to be completely pleasure. It's actually a realm you hit, and it only wants you to feel what the highest level orgasm would be. Basically, many people get stuck on this plane. They call it Tantra because it just feels good. And it's just like a guy that I picked up a Tantra signal from the other day, and I knew the guy a little bit, but then the first thing he came out of his mouth was, he said, man, I'm enjoying Earth. I'm here. So you can find, I'm here to stay. You can find this coming out of people's mouths. And I'm not saying Earth is a bad place, but when someone has not recognized where Earth is needing attention, then they're clearly a part of the problem because they didn't break the first layer. So that first layer is massage land. They say, oh, the message, I got the message from them, and they said it's all about love. Yeah, I know, because that's all they talk about there. That's the first barrier. The next barrier appeared to be vines. What the vines were responsible, when they were in nature, and they also work closely with the insects. Notice that many insects do appear like trees at times. They can perfectly mimic that. It's because they're all from the same family. And this family eventually bridges into electronics because the art of the insect, which is more or less a higher level of nanotechnology, it's like a machine. And what it's doing is it's constantly sending out a signal of mating. This is what was also discovered last night with a friend of mine. But the actual signal itself, and looking on Wikipedia, you see that they're sending a mating call. So basically what you're saturated in is the frequency of mating calls from grasshoppers. Now, Moloch was a grasshopper god. Solomon crushed 3 grasshoppers in his hand and made it right to Moloch. And after that, all his wisdom was not. That's in the book of Solomon, the last book that was ever written. So the fact is that we have to understand that there is something else going on around here beside your small nucleus. And if you don't start joining with people who broke into other realms so they can explain to you truly what's really going on, it's going to cost you. They have this thing already set up to launch within the next 6 months, if that. What they've been doing, like if you look in Japan, all of Jap anime and all of most of the manga and things that they put out was based on Japan one day being infected by a nuclear holocaust and then caused a mutation within their spiritual species called the Genova strain. I mean, what's happening in Japan now? How long are we going to sit back and watch them predict the doom and then act like our little minds, whether we think it or not, has anything to do with whether it happens or not? They are in a hive mind collective and they're using the ones that are not awake, not you. Your little thought only counts for a little bit. They're using the masses to guide the big ship. So the only way to undo this is we have to hack back into the network. See, many people, they leave and then they never come back and then they leave their bodies here. And because people only look at the physical body of the individual, they're imagining some of these people that are walking around the dimension are still them and they're not anymore. Like I think of David Icke is still in that body. Man, David Icke's gone. Michael Tsarian, when they were in their height, they were there. Now they're gone. And then now these other beings have control of their body and they're still dictating stuff that we're supposed to be waiting on as they're gathering all their moon energy or the money, the passion. They're gathering all that back from the person. And then when that's all the person really had anyway, then they don't live anymore. Then they recycle them and it comes around again. This is cycle. Or is it a cycle? They're telling people exactly what's going on, but the babble is that many of the words all mean the same thing. N2EMW3. These are all the same symbols moved in different directions. North, east, south, west. These are all the same symbols, just bent a different way. This is the confusion. The confusion. How they are actually fusing cells together that are not even symbiotic with each other, like an ionic bond, as we discovered that the name of their god is John at times. And that's why John becomes the word that they use in many cases, and that's their god Oannes. And it's also where we get the word one from. But this is really a J is an I. It's an ion. It's a being that understands how to bond actual structure or a net around an organic being and then program it. But you can break that program, and a part of breaking that program is knowing that program is in there running. I can explain very clearly that if you don't know about certain things, you cannot see it. It does not appear to you. It's not in your database. This is literally like there is another planet and it has a lot of other beings on it. They're totally different. They speak this different language and everything. Now I'm trying to explain that to you. but you don't have any reference point, any data, any knowledge, any samples. You don't have samples of the DNA. You don't have anything telling you that that is the truth. So therefore, it does not become the truth to you. So when breaching into the higher levels, you're in an actual field of truth. And it hurts. It starts to catch the whole body on fire to the point where every single desire is melting away. Because what's actually happening in your mind is you're realizing that all of your desires are causing all of your pain because they're actually what's keeping the pain going. And it's totally different than how people are putting it. People are putting it like, okay, so what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to start going through life and you're supposed to pass your trials and you're supposed to get... How are you going to do that when your field around you is being programmed? They are programming stumbling blocks for people. So to break free of something like that, that's why I mentioned now what needs to take place in an institute level for a person to be completely broken free from a matrix. Not a book, not a meaning from Deepak Chakra, none of that kind of stuff. It's definitely getting them one-on-one with their third eye. Then they can see it for themselves. And then they can judge what they will do from here. And every human would do the same thing. Because it's the same thing that I'm doing right now. Once I was made aware, my life was given to make everyone aware. Because we weren't living. We were dead. We had already died. We had already split into two. We're on the same planet with our mates. And we need them. And they're looking for something else in something else. Like, it's that kind of divide and conquer situation going on. And so when you witness this going on, if this was your command to do something about planets and this kind of trouble because you understood their symbol, you understood it was the empire symbol before you came in. Then you saw the empire symbol and you still chose to land. Then you landed and you were bombarded and stripped. Then you were thrown in prison. But why? Well, if there's enough of us in prison, we can make a jailbreak. It's called an insurrection. That's really a strategy. I'm still just trying to figure out if we're going to utilize some of this, or am I going to have to go into kamikaze, like singular missions to cripple networks? So the fact is that we have an opportunity to build a community to actually bring the people who can really stay out of the field for long enough, the programming field, so that they can see all of the rest of what they were supposed to do. So once they see it, then they activate. We understand that activated individuals around each other actually activate one another just kinetically. But we're just going to keep it pouring on. We're not even just going to stop because you're around other people that are activated. We're going to keep going to push and activate until you're activated. That's how it works. But I tell you the truth, man, it's getting pretty late in the evening, and it doesn't look really well. But the thing is that I'm not talking to the masses. Remember, the masses are under the program. I'm talking to the ones out there that are awake. Or if you know someone that is completely awake. I had such a very, very ill feeling the other morning because I awoke from a dream that I could describe everything that was going on, and I knew everything that was happening was real, even from the books that were there. And I could have even taken the knowledge from those books and brought it back here so that it could be utilized because it was a supreme system of knowledge. But the fact was, when I got up, the energy started to bottle up because I didn't have anything or anyone to vent it to, or any system to put it into right away. And then it just dispersed and it went away. And then I felt this sadness and I felt ill because I said, man, I can't even call my father. Can't even call my grandfather and tell them about this because they don't even understand it, or they're not even alive because they died. So what I'm saying is that when that kind of thing is happening, it's common sense that you got to make a move, that something is saying something's wrong. It's not all right. But you got to have the courage, the honor, the strength. You got to have everything now. That's what wholeness is. And when you take that, you'll realize that there's no more barriers for you. And your mind was your only barrier because that's where they put the programming, in your hive mind. And the only way to access these planes that I'm going to keep explaining here was to stop your mind from working while you were ascending, because in your mind, because again, very difficult to explain, but as you're ascending, your mind keeps saying, yo, is that what we're seeing? Yo, did you see that? Hey, man, maybe you're supposed to use that name from that book. Hey, man, there's a chart. Do you know, obviously, if you say something right now, anything you say will actually manifest. Look at this field. So this is where the mind's at. Because what they're doing is they're programming right at that point. Like I said, one dream I had, I woke up into this world. I was immediately inserted, and we were trying to get to a lady there, and just so that I can explain to her what was really happening. When I creeped into one of the rooms, I saw these people on computers, and they were not just people. They were from another planet. They were different than us. And they were programming things on computers that were more sophisticated than ours. And then when I accessed the truth field and I asked, what is that? They said they're programming Earth. Earth is on a stream. They're streaming Earth, because they can calculate the probability of things moments before it happens and even years before it happens, so they just keep programming the reality. Then they went crazy enough to make the book called the movie Adjustment Bureau now, showing that that's exactly what they're doing. Why? To prove to other people that are still in the program that anyone talking about this kind of stuff is not telling the truth, because they saw it in the movie. Everybody said, oh, you saw that in the movie. Oh, you read that in David Icke's book. Oh, you got that out of this book. I got people coming at me like that now, like I haven't been on this for 5 years now. So it wasn't anyone else's work, because I was not interested in reading anyone else's work. I was just kind of like that anyway. If it wasn't ancient, I definitely didn't want to read any modern stuff, and all those guys' stuff was modern to me. But in many cases, those individuals were getting the same transmission, because if you're one thing about truth, everyone is experiencing if they're into truth. It's just what they see. Now we've run into a situation, because that situation is now that we see, what are we going to do about it? And my mind's working on a quantum level at all times, and it always knows the front mission, which is still educate the people. Like whatever you decide to do, still educate the people. You cannot fail at that mission. Now any side missions you choose to run to better the problem, great, because we're low on reinforcements anyway. Like, we sent way too many in the earth. Let me tell you the universal situation going on here. People want to believe me or not, it's on them. Once I accessed this higher plane, when I finally got past what appeared to be a gray, looking into Earth as if Earth was a fishbowl, like that's how it was looking. It was over some type of control panel. Once I got past that, I accessed this field. I'm just calling it the field of truth, because all data is there, like everything. This is the true Akashic record. It's like everything is there. Actually, I'm just going to even have to pause for a moment I just need to pause for a moment and just take a really brief break. It's at exactly 30 minutes on this, and I just need to check the systems here real quick. Take a moment for break, so if everyone just can hold on for a quick second, I'll be right back, or forward, as I say. Okay, that one almost got away. The universal situation. Look at this here. Okay, here's the universal situation. Okay, Bar, B-A-R, means Saturn. It's another name for Saturn. It also comes out in the Arabic as Rab, which means my father. And it comes out in Hebrew as the Rab, or the Rabbi, which means my teacher, my instructor, my priest. So what happened is that if you look at this Rab, as it says, and I just need to collect my thoughts, because I also need to turn off my Skype, because I can't really get interruptions. Because of course the universal situation is high level information, and first of all, the other thing is that I could actually put it all together, and I'm going to put it all together for you so that you don't have to look at me like, oh, is he telling me something that I should believe, or should I not accept that, or you could go check it for yourself. Okay, so the Merovingians and Bar, the Merovingians actually they're the keepers of the stone. That stone is Saturn. It's very large, but the thing is that anyone in possession of the stone becomes ruler of the earth. And that's why the Merovingians are ruling in parliament with the queen and all that stuff, because they have the stone. So the name of this being and this stone goes into many different languages, many different ways, and explains a lot of things. And one of those names for Saturn is Bar. Now, the bar is what you drink at, because they said Saturn had a problem. In the Hindu text, you could see that Saturn was always drunk on the soma all the time, and this also led to Saturn doing things that offended many of the other beings when they once were in harmony with each other. It basically started the wars. And that's why Saturn is always known to herald the Golden Age, because the Golden Age is actually the ignition of the actual whole planet, because Saturnalian things begin to happen when you're at a Saturnalian cycle, which also heralds a flood. So anytime they say they've been wanting to bring the Golden Age, that means they want to bring the end of our world. That's all that means, and it's 100%. I can send you all the documentation. So Bar and Saturn also studies law. And the main law they study is universal law, because they're always looking for loopholes. They're always looking for things that the universal knowledge, universal system that just kind of maybe not overlooked, but it's like a hole in the molecule or something of that nature. It's very deep knowledge to be trying to look for things like this. But the fact of the matter is that what happened is that Saturn, law, Bar figured out more or less a statute or a clause in the universal law that they can actually hold hostage or a host age groups of individuals in an attempt to bargain or broker, called a shadow broker, a deal with their release. So this is what's happening. Release, meaning another time to like a lease. You get another period of time to basically do the same thing again. So how this looks, to make it simplified, is basically there is a universal law that if the universe makes a decision, all those that are in service of the universe cannot go against that decision. So what these beings that have ravaged and terrorized Earth and several other planets are actually trying to negotiate is that for their release, because those that work for the universe are actually parked outside of this planet. It's really more of what we would call that last barrier. Once you get to that last barrier, there's a space there, and then there's, which we call the Akashic Record, all of our information, everything we've ever done. And then that next space is where the universe, the universal, if we're using these terms, the universal command is. So these beings are trapped. They can't even go past a certain level, and this manifests in the books as that the Greys cannot go past a certain level of their own consciousness because they're using external Merkaba. And they know this, so they've been busy trying to mate and breed and intertwine and weave and vine and bind themselves to other beings so that they can survive. Because it's basically like if they can get inside, like they've gotten embroiled inside of Earth, the universe will have to consider more things. Because you got to imagine, there's other beings that are here, and their family is out there, and their families are like rich, for better lack of words, in the galaxy, and hold a lot of influence, but they're even having trouble making anything happen, or even negotiating. There's been people now that are negotiating singular deals to release certain people from the matrix. So this is the complexity of the universe, if you ever wanted to think about what it was like to be on a universal panel of nothing but beings from another planet and high knowledge, like some stuff you would see on Star Wars, but the real thing. So what the Saturn Bar Merovingian law guys are actually trying to negotiate is that for the release of the ones that are here, that they are allowed to leave. The problem with this is that if the universe agrees to this, this means that wherever they go, the universe cannot do anything about it. Earth is actually not in that situation right now. Meaning that is a horrible situation if for the next planet that they won't even be able to stop these beings from doing what they do. Right now, we can stop this. I'm just going to tell you how sensitive the situation is. The universe has considered sacrificing all organic beings because we're an extension from the planet. Like we're like trees growing off the planet. Our legs connect like roots. But we're just moving around. We're not fixed stars. We're moving. So the thing is that there's been a thought of, instead, to save this whole planet, to sacrifice all the beings on the surface. Because the actual core of Gaia can still be saved while still exterminating the Dracons, for better lack of words. Because there's a third of the beings that are in the constellation that are actually involved in this. Throughout time, remember, time. Saturn is involved in time, stasis. So what happens is, why this whole thing has been playing out, things have been happening. Just like this was all known at a certain point. Now we got to teach this over again. So things are in action, things are happening. So, once again, I have to collect myself, but the fact is that this negotiation is pending. Because the universe is not going to allow the Draconians for basically what they've done and all the different souls they've slaughtered and their whole practice to get away with this. The situation is that they don't want to sacrifice the organic beings on the surface, because many of those organic beings are individual souls. And it's just an atrocity. The whole thing is very difficult to even consider, and it's hurting the hearts of many beings. Any being that's tapped into emotion is hurt right now. Because stuff's happening. Despite you in the living room chilling out, there's people dying all around the world. There's people being poisoned. Japan's poisoning everything. People are losing energy. People are losing hope. All that's going on right now. They're saying this is what has to happen. It's almost like if you've seen it in, I think the movie is Con Air. They realize they got someone still on board, but he's like a criminal, maybe. They can't figure out what really happened in his case. This is what I feel like what my situation personally is. I know I was in higher levels of doing big things for the galaxy. Then something went wrong that I don't even think was my fault. And then I'm here on Earth. But I'm sure the universe is like, hey, we still got 7 in there. We still got blah, blah, blah in there. We still got blah, blah, blah in there. And even though they may have done a couple things, their charts say they're still powerful beings. Maybe that's our only hope. Like, it would be an ultimate solution. They have to break out from within. But, man, it's got to happen before 2012, because once the portal's open, there's no way we're going to allow them to make a run for it. The Dracons are not going to be allowed. So whether you can tune into this or not, or whether you think it's going on, it doesn't even really matter to me anymore. For the simple fact that if I was ever tapping into how many people actually got the message and allowing that to drive me, I would have been dead a long time ago, doing something else. I'm waiting for that moment. That's the only thing that can restore me back to the whole being that I was when I started this mission. And I'll explain that just very briefly. We've sacrificed certain things. I've sacrificed things to get to this point, to give you this information. The last crop circle that was ever authenticated, when they sent out the diagram and the schematics and everything of us to someone else out in the galaxy, when that transmission came back, it had the face of the gray alien on it. And in that message, in the end, the most important message was that beware of false promises. We are not the ones who approve of that, as the universe is sending this message. But what does all this message mean? It's meaning that someone is on this dimension promising people something. They're promising these new agers something. And it's the one that is causing all of the problems. It's got a psychosis going on where a person will yell out, no, the problem is us. Man, the problem is not you. You're not even big enough to be a problem yet. Trust me. You become a problem when you start to do things that are going to relieve this environment from its stress. They're already showing you that. Let me tell you why. This will become very simple to you. What weapon of immense power, especially to wake up consciousness and wake up other beings, wasn't ever tried to be, the word I'm looking for is confiscated by the government. Right? Like, they want to control everything. They don't want anything that has power and ability to not be under their control. So that lets you understand where they're really coming from. So your ideas of wanting power and ability doesn't fit with their ideas of not giving anyone any and wanting them to be slaves. So the moment that you start deciding that you want real power and ability is the moment that the real world starts to activate around you. Now, you do have people, other comrades on the missions that are with you and can ally and help you. But the fact is that if you have not removed the agent from yourself, if you have not realized that the hive mind is infecting you, and you have not read the holy books and done what you need to do in order to figure out whether or not you're going to be able to understand everything that's happening, that's on you. There's a million people out here doing it. There's billions of people out here doing it. There's no one that's going to cry for you. There's no one that's going to cry for me. That's why if you're going to do some crying, just cry for yourself. The fact of the matter is that you're still going to have to get back up, dust yourself off, stop getting Jedi mind tricked, and keep piercing through those veils to figure out what you need to really do to cause the chain reaction within this planet. I'm telling you, one of the major reasons why people need to have an active third eye is so they can actually see how much they are missing. All of the lights, all of the designs, all of the energies, the communications, all of this, wow. No wonder why we're dying. Without that, one cannot live for too long because it is them. That's all you're being opened up to when you open up your eyes. You're opening up yourself. They have you locked in Jehovian sealed, as they call it. We bind them and cast them, put them in the pit, get the seal. If people didn't understand that these imbeciles have come under the influence of the same thing that's causing all the problems, and they've made these weird magic books, okay? And there's thousands of them. And then they sent these books into the hand of the desperate. And the desperate have received those books as their nourishment. And they have eaten poison, and they're grabbing at their throats as they're infected by worms. Now, here's the main thing about the reality that you start seeing is the serpentine worm nature of the reality. Because piece by piece by piece, the worms are eating at you. You look on the surface of your skin, you get a microscope, you look on the surface of the skin per square inch, there's at least 40,000 worms there. That's on everyone. You can Google it. So, because they're slowly actually eating at your surface. So start expanding into how the fractal nature works of things to understand. So what's happening? Are these worms digging? Has the core of our planet ever been accessed? Or are there still protectors around the core? Or was the core the big pyramid and the gray is inside of it? What I'm saying is you got to ask yourself all of these questions to get results. And you're on the EverQuest at that point. Your life really becomes the actual adventure. You're not the sideline person anymore. So as I said before, it's about how much energy we can pull up right now for this last time. I'm asking people again, you see what we're doing here, you see how involved we are, get involved with something that's actually going to help. Not throw more burdens on us. Like some people, they come acting like they're coming to help, but they just kind of give us a burden because now we got to help them do everything because they want to help. It doesn't make any sense. But people walking around them all day, and they're so timid. Our world's falling apart. They're afraid to ask that individual, hey, man, you're a multimillionaire, man. Look, there's a lot of things going on in the world, and I think that you could benefit off of getting involved in something like this because you don't have anything else to do because you're a psycho, man, and it's driving you psycho. What are you talking about, man? You sound crazy. Yeah, man, I am crazy, man. Is it really that bad to be crazy? I mean, look what's going on. Shit, if I'm not crazy right now, that means that I'm a gray. Because I've lost all my emotions. They're like doing weird stuff. And if you don't think they're doing weird stuff, go down to the grocery store, go to the candy aisle where all the kids go, look on the bottom shelf, and go get a lot of those red hard candies and start reading the back of that. And then you tell me, why is it necessary for something that could be just honey and taste just as good to be that? And what kind of genetic modifications and mutations are actually going on? Then you cease to become man. They say, oh, you're out of man now. You're not man no more. You're X-Man. He's like his ex-girlfriend now. When you get powers, you're X-Man now. You can't be man anymore. So what, again, I'm here to do is to continue to enlighten people about the situation. I will continue to do that as long as I can. I don't find any pressure in doing that. I only find the pressure in continuously beating my head against the wall, waiting for the individual to come forth that can push this to the next level, or at least combine to keep and help pushing this with their talents and their abilities. That's what makes it so strange to me. That's why I entered back into this world and got back into the internet and started to connect with people, because I realized that maybe it was my misconceptions about what was ultimately going to take place here, and I wasn't doing anything about it. So I used all of my talents and my skills and abilities. I've been a programmer. I've owned companies before. I've rented exotic cars. All this stuff, I've done real estate. All this stuff has come to serve me up until now. I've made all of those things submit all the way up until this point so that I can use all my power and ability, instead of destroying and feeding my own passions, to actually push back into the environment in hopes that I may make it out. Because I understand the damage that I've done. I know the ripple effect, as they say in the Adjustment Bureau. You could see the ripple effect if you're willing to be honest with yourself, and you don't even have to have a third eye open. You could see the individuals that you've encouraged to do certain things and how they are now. And then now you've discovered that those things are wrong, and then you're sitting back acting like you're still the only one that has to figure your way out. They do too, and they got to figure their way out because of what you did. See? That's divine nature, as everyone begins to cross over their vines with each other. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get offline now. There's about 11 more minutes in the show, but I'm going to let everyone have an opportunity to allow what I said to soak in. And I wanted to just thank everyone for responding to the post that we posted up with their heart, mind, and soul. And that's going to be it for today. You've tuned in to Esoteric Radio, and you will hear from us next week with another show that's just based on the body and whole body cleansing, etc. And that will be hosted by Satori Moon Wholeness.